Good afternoon. Today we're going to be covering Chapter 2 in our computer class, which is going to be storing data. So to go over a couple of definitions for characters and strings, data is a collection of values that we store and manipulate with the computer. The data type is the type of data we want to store. It could be integer, a string, which we'll cover in a little bit. Character is going to be alphabetic data with one single quote. So if you have just one character, you can use single quotes instead of double quotes, which we talked about before. You'll see both examples later. So the ASCII is the American Standard Code for Information Exchange. Every letter on your keypad has a corresponding ASCII code here. And there's some examples there on the right side. Today that's expanded to over 65,000 different characters. So when you have a sentence like this, "Hi Kendra, do you want to go out to lunch today?" You have to add up the number of characters in that sentence, assuming there's no spaces before and after. So in this case here, the answer is actually 48 because you have to include the spaces in between your actual letters. So spaces are considered characters too. Okay, for numerical data types that we're going to talk about, the first is going to be integers, which are numerical values without a decimal place. That is considered an integer, which we'll go over how to calculate integers later on as well. A floating point data type is going to be any numerical value, including integers, that have decimals behind it. So if you see a decimal, it's a floating point. If there's no decimal, it could be either floating point or integer. Okay, for numerical operators, you have operators, which are used to manipulate the data, which again we'll go over, and operands, which is going to be the data that you manipulate with the operators. We have our basic addition and subtraction, which you know about. Addition is combining two values together. Add-ins are going to be the values on which the addition is being performed. So you have your operators and operands. You have your addition. You're going to have your add-ins. So in this case here, -4 plus a -6 gives a -20 if they have the same sign. If there's two different signs, you always take the difference between the two and take the sign of the larger number. So -8 plus 6 gives a -2 because you're going to take the minus sign there. Subtraction, they say it's similar to addition. You change the sign. So 8 minus 2 is really 8 plus a -2, which gives 6. So technically you're never doing subtraction. Subtraction is actually adding two numbers with different signs. So again, 8 minus 2 is really 8 plus a -2. You're going to take the larger sign, which is going to give you a +6. There are four types of multiplicative operators: multiplication, division, integer division, and modulus. The first two you're probably familiar with, multiplication. For us, when we do it with the computers, you're going to use the asterisk sign. Multiplication is a shortcut for addition. So 4.2 times 5 gives 21. It's really a shortcut for what? 4.2 plus 4.2 plus 4.2 5 times. So it's a shortcut for addition. Division, which you see the symbol here, you're familiar with. You have the two different parts of it. You're going to have the divisor, which is going to be your top number, and the dividend, which is the actual top number. Divisor is what you're dividing by. So in this case here, your divisor is going to be 2. Your dividend is 6.8, which gives 3.4. If you see two division symbols together, that's actually integer division, which was new to me for this course. The resulting data type is going to be always an integer. So you're going to divide just like with division, but you're always going to truncate it, which means you're going to cut off the actual decimal point. You never round. So you take 6.8 integer division 2 gives 3 instead of what? 3.4. If you're doing dividing, just straight dividing would be 3.4. Integer, you just truncate or just chop off the actual decimal point, no rounding. Modulus, which again was new to me, most of us know it as the percent sign. This is going to be the remainder after dividing two numbers. So 7 mod 2 gives a 1 because 2 goes into 7 3 times, which gives you 6. and you have that 1 left over. If you remember the long division where you would divide it and you had your remainder down at the bottom, that's your modulus answer. So 7 mod 2 gives 1 because that's going to be your remainder, and it's always going to be an integer. Here's some problems here. So you have 10 mod 5, which is going to be actually 0 because there is no remainder. Remember, the modulus is your remainder. If 5 goes into 10 cleanly and gives you 10, and there's no leftover, it's going to be 0. 10 integer division 4 is going to give you 2. If you were dividing, it'd give you 2.5. Excuse me. You chop off the decimal place. And finally, 32 divided by 5, you're going to give the whole number 6.4 with the decimal place. So there's a certain precedence that you have to use whenever you're using these different operators, operands, and also precedence. So first is going to be parentheses, as you see. We have your unary, which is going to be right to left. Multiplicative, which is going to be all the ones we just covered, and additive is going to be last. You read these bottom two from left to right, but it's not this exact order. It's whatever order that they fall in on your formula. So you may have the mod sign first. That's fine. You're going to do mod sign first. So these are all equal. It just depends on how it forms in your problem or your formula that you're using. Negation is simply just our negative symbol. So -2 or -2 here. You're going to have your negation here, which is unary, meaning 1. Binary, you're going to need 2 numbers. That's just your additive or your subtracting here. So 4 minus 2 is a binary operator. If you just have the minus sign or negative sign, -2, that's considered a negation. Here's an example here, which we'll cover later on in the course too. We'll do some exercises on the order that you use. Okay, exponent or exponentiation. Your exponent is your operator, which is a shortcut for multiplication. So 3 with the 2 exponent, or to the second power, means 3 times 3, which is 9. If you have a 0 for your exponent, then the answer is always going to be 1, no matter what the first number is. Casting is when you're converting from one data type to another. If you remember earlier, we talked about you can have a string, you can have an integer, you can cast it and convert it over if you need to do some type of formula with that. So again, we said every character has a corresponding ASCII. So here we're converting 66 gives a B because we're casting that to the actual letter. So CHR is your casting. To expand upon our table, again, we have parentheses first, then exponentiation, unary, which we showed that with the -2, and cast, if you're casting. That's the first order here. Remember, these three go from right to left, not left to right. And then we have our multiplicative, which we said all these were equal. Depends on whatever order it falls, and that's going to be read from left to right. And your additive, which is your adding and subtracting, and again, that's going to be from left to right. So if your subtraction symbol's first, then you're going to do that first. So we talked about the different types of data, how to store it, how to manipulate it using mod, division, multiplication. We can change from one type to another, go from a string to an integer. And there's very specific rules on orders of precedence that you have to follow in order to get the right answer and for your formula to work. So thank you for your time. I hope you learned a few things.